All right, so are you ready to dive into Outliers? This book, I gotta say, it really changed how I think about success. It's not just the usual stuff you hear about talent and hard work. Gladwell digs into all these surprising factors, things you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, he really flips the script. Like he talks about the Beatles, Bill Gates, even rice farmers, and how they all became outliers in their own ways.
It's wild. So, to kick things off, let's talk about this idea of the 10,000-hour rule. Basically, Gladwell says that to really master something, anything, really, you need a crazy amount of practice. Like, we're talking 10,000
Yeah,
hours.
no shortcuts, right?
Exactly. He gives this example of Bill Joy, this coding legend, who just happened to go to one of the few universities back in the 70s that had a 24/7 computer lab. So while everyone else was off, sleeping or whatever, he's there putting in those hours, getting that experience.
And it makes you wonder, what are those 24/7 computer labs in your own field? What are those opportunities, those resources that you could be tapping into?
Totally. Sometimes it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter, finding those pockets of time where you can really immerse yourself. Which actually leads us to another one of Gladwell's big ideas, the Matthew effect. Have you heard of
Oh,
this?
yeah. It's this idea that small advantages early on in life can snowball into huge benefits later on.
It's kind of like you get a head start and just keep building momentum, right?
Exactly. And Gladwell uses this fascinating example of Canadian hockey players. Turns out, those born earlier in the year have a leg up.
Wait, really? Just because they were born in January versus like December?
It sounds crazy, but think about it. Those January babies are a little bit older, a little bit bigger. When they start playing, they're more likely to get picked for the better teams, get better coaching, that kind of thing. And all that just keeps compounding over time.
Wow. It really makes you stop and think, what were some of those early advantages in your own life that might have set you on a particular path? It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. It really highlights how interconnected these factors are. And, it makes you think about how we can level the playing field for others. But Gladwell doesn't stop there. He also challenges this notion that IQ is the end-all be-all of success. He tells this compelling and kind of sad story about this guy, Chris Langan.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember this. Didn't he have an incredibly high IQ, like off the charts?
Yeah, astronomical. But despite his incredible intellect, he never really achieved the kind of success you might expect.
So what happened? Was it just a lack of drive? Like he had the brains, but not the ambition?
It's more nuanced than that. You see, Langan might have had the raw intelligence, but he lacked something else, something Gladwell calls practical intelligence.
Practical intelligence.
Now,
Okay, I'm curious. What does that mean exactly?
it's that ability to navigate social situations, to negotiate, to seize opportunities when they present themselves. Things that Langan, unfortunately, struggled with.
Interesting. So it's not just about book smarts, it's about knowing how to apply that knowledge in the real world, right?
Exactly. And to really drive this point home, Gladwell contrasts Langan with another brilliant mind, Robert Oppenheimer, the scientific mind behind the Manhattan Project.
Oh, right. Oppenheimer. Talk about a
Mhm.
high-pressure situation leading that whole project.
Absolutely. And the thing about Oppenheimer is he wasn't just a genius. He also possessed this incredible practical intelligence. He could rally people to his cause. He could secure funding, navigate those complex scientific and political landscapes.
It sounds like a powerful combination, having both brilliance and that social savvy. But Gladwell doesn't just stop at individual traits, does he? He goes even deeper, exploring how cultural background and the era we're born into also play a huge role.
Totally. He argues that these are factors we often overlook, but they're crucial to understanding why some people succeed and others don't. He uses the example of these Jewish lawyers in the 1970s who found success by specializing in hostile takeovers.
Ah, interesting. Because at that time, that was like a new thing, right? The more established firms weren't interested in touching that.
Exactly. They saw an opportunity and they went for it. And it makes you wonder, how many opportunities do we miss simply because we're stuck within a certain way of thinking, limited by our own cultural norms?
It's a good question, isn't it? We can get so caught up in the way things have always been done that we miss those breakthrough moments. Thinking about these different cultural legacies, it makes me wonder about the whole idea of meaningful work. And you know what? Gladwell goes there too. He connects rice farming and Jewish immigrants in the garment industry. It's wild.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a stretch, right?
Yeah.
But he actually does a good job of showing how both of these groups, they experience these core elements that make work really satisfying. Things like autonomy, complexity, that connection between your effort and what you see.
It makes sense when you think about it, right? Like rice farming, it's not just throwing some seeds in the ground and hoping for the best. It's problem solving. It's this constant learning process, mastering all these techniques.
Totally. And those garment workers, those immigrants in New York, they had that same spirit, that resilience, that focus on detail. So it's interesting to think about, right? Does your work have those elements, that autonomy, that chance to really use your brain? See that link between what you're doing and the results you're getting.
Man, that's a question we should all be asking ourselves. And if the answer is no, well, maybe it's time to look for something new, something more, motivating.
For sure. And, sometimes those opportunities, they might mean stepping outside of that comfort zone, embracing challenges that really push you. Like Gladwell talks about this school in the Bronx, KIPP Academy. They've had amazing results by actually extending the school day and year.
It's definitely a controversial approach. You have people saying it's just too much pressure on these kids.
I get that. It's a tough one. But then Gladwell introduces us to this student, Marita, who absolutely thrives in that environment. For her, it's like this chance to really push herself, learn more, achieve more.
Yeah, to kind of take control of her own future in a way.
Exactly. And it shows how sometimes those opportunities that seem the toughest, they're the ones that can be the most rewarding.
Mm.
It's not just about working hard, but it's about finding that meaning in the work, in those challenges.
Totally. So I guess it makes you wonder, what are those opportunities in your own life? The ones you might be overlooking? What would it take for you to really embrace those chances, even if they mean getting a little uncomfortable, challenging the way you've always done things?
Absolutely. Because I think, as Gladwell shows us, success, it's not this straight line. It's not just about talent or hard work. It's about recognizing those moments, those
Mhm.
opportunities that can really push you forward, even if they come from an unexpected place.
I like that. It's about being open to those unexpected detours. And you know what gets me? At the end of the book, Gladwell, he gets really personal, right? He
Right.
talks about his own family.
Yeah, he brings it back around to his family history, all the way back to Jamaica. And he really focuses on his mother's story, how she achieved success.
And it's amazing how he ties it all together. Like he talks about Jamaica's history, how colonialism and this really rigid social structure created all these obstacles, especially for a woman as bright as his mother.
And she still beat the odds. It's pretty incredible.
I mean, talk about a story of resilience. And what's crazy is how it all unfolded. Like she gets this scholarship to this really prestigious high school, but it's all because of this wild chain of events.
Right. I mean, who could have predicted the riots of 1937? And then because of those riots, the government's forced to make education more accessible. And on top of that, someone actually gave up their own scholarship so Gladwell's mom could go to that high school.
It's like all these dominoes falling into place. And it just shows you how easily things could have gone a totally different way, how these little events, these seemingly insignificant things can completely change the course of someone's life. It's amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it really brings home that message that Gladwell keeps coming back to. Even those people who we think of as like self-made successes, a
Mhm.
lot of times they've benefited from advantages and opportunities that they didn't create themselves. It's a humbling thought for sure.
It really is. It definitely challenges those easy narratives we tell ourselves, like, oh, it's all about talent, it's all about hard work. I mean, yeah, those things matter, but it's so much more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's about recognizing all those invisible forces that are at play. The history, the culture, even just being in the right place at the right time. It's recognizing that success isn't just about what we do as individuals. It's about understanding all of those factors, all of those forces that come together to make those achievements possible.
And that's a wrap on Outliers. So hopefully you're walking away from this deep dive with a whole new perspective on what it takes to achieve something truly extraordinary. It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. Because it really makes you wonder, if we could trace back the story of any successful person, we'd find those hidden advantages, those lucky breaks that helped them along the way. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, just be open to those unexpected opportunities. Be ready to embrace those chances when they come your way. Hey, who knows? Maybe one day someone will be unpacking your success story, finding all those twists and turns that made you who you are.